Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a new season, our second season of our show, Tawhid, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. I'm so excited to be back actually, because after the first season was successful, we've decided, me and my dear co-host Harry Durbitsky, to do another season. And we are starting it off with our amazing guest, Kathryn Jones, and myself as a co host and guest too. So, just to give you a brief intro for Kathryn Jones, Kathryn is the owner and founder at Me First Summit, emotional resilience coach at Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy, and motivational speaker, author, and social entrepreneur at Kathryn Jones. And myself, I've actually just founded my company called Tawhid Mentoring Academy, which is I'm so excited about, and going to be launching some amazing programs and that I will be sharing with you later on after we finish this amazing show. So today's episode is called Muslim and the Three Principles. So it's going to be all about sharing the juicy bits of our religion, and the three principles, because like one of the most important thing in our religion is the spiritual essence of it. And this is, as I mentioned before in previous shows, that it is the place where all religions meet, and where we all connect. No separation, just oneness, unity, no uh, no separation. So I'll give it over to Harry, and then I'll give it to Kathryn.
Yeah, well,
Hi, Harry.
what we're going to do is generally Omar and I are co-hosts, and of course he is still co-host, but this time I'm going to ask as a non-Muslim questions to the two of them and ask them for answers, and then I would love for the rest of the group to get involved in whatever way they feel that will add clarity or to the situation. And as I start off for the second season, one of the outstanding benchmarks of the first season was, how was Tawhid, spiritual unity of the three principles, going to integrate within the Muslim community? Because it started very slow. And in truth, we primarily attracted three people, non-Muslim people at the beginning. But one of the highlights was when Kathryn came on, and of course, I didn't know who Kathryn was, but when she came on, it lit up the show. It took it in another direction in many ways. Primarily, one of the ways was that Kathryn, Omar, and myself bonded together, and that was really something special. And it led to Omar talking at Kathryn's Fitra, to the whatever mentoring academy.
Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy.
Yes, three-day seminar type thing where Omar was asked to talk, and that was a highlight. And then later they asked me to talk about addiction in a private talk with a large number of primarily Muslim women, and that was what we were looking for, was to integrate with existing pockets of strength and wisdom that were not connected together. And so from that perspective, Kathryn has been a milestone and a wonderful person to share with, but her group was also very wonderful to share with, and several of them are on here as well. And so we captured a feeling, and that I call the spiritual feeling. It was spiritually grounded by that. And one of the concepts that Kathryn brought when we had Krista Camsel on about talking about the kids, she introduced what she was doing with the kids, with the Muslim kids, and so on. And the first thing that she did, and I'd like both of you guys to comment on this, is she introduced the concept. Don't you, she says, the Muslim community will not understand the word mind. So she defined it in a different way. And this is very helpful to deal with different cultures, very similar, like Kathryn, the way that I deal with the indigenous. I don't use the word mind there either. They won't understand it. She says, we use guided by Allah. Can you, both of you, tell me from your perspective what guided by Allah means to you?
You go first, Kathryn.
In one sentence, I think being guided by Allah means just having an internal peace and confidence and certainty that everything's going to be okay. Because there's someone bigger and greater than us, our creator, who's in charge of all of this, who knows everything that's going on for everyone. So I don't have to worry about those details. I just have to worry about showing up as my best self and do my best. And in any given moment, notice what my responsibility is and not have to worry about the rest, because Allah's got that. And so that's what it means to me, is that in any given moment, I can look within, what am I meant to be doing in this moment? Because as we know, this isn't about doing, but of course life is about doing. And so it's about being in the state where you're witnessing how Allah is guiding you, so that you can be doing what is the best thing possible in this life, to be the most beneficial and productive human being you can be.
Beautiful, beautiful. And please note how similar that this is the way mind would be defined in the three principles. But and I love the way you bring the spiritual and the humanity intermingled. That's the trick, guys. Don't get it's just spiritual. Don't get it's just human. It's that connection to who we are. We go in and out, back and forth. We actually walk together like two people. Omar, how do you see that?
For me, I see it as, just jumping into that space of the unknown and knowing that you'll be being taken care of. And that feels it's so scary. But when you, like we had a show about faith. So for me, this is faith, knowing that I will be guided no matter what happened in the outside. And to truly experience and know that is such a beautiful thing, because it makes my life easier. It makes me just be, instead of trying to figure it out, fix my problems, and just trying to play with something, like with my intellect, and just be in the present moment, in the presence of Allah. And it also means being in that, like when I'm guided by Allah, I'm in that state of space of humbleness that we talked about. The state of humbleness, which is Khushuu. This is a really important state that actually we describe it in the 3P community as a space within, or presence, or different words, but it's the same. When we are in that state, we are connected to Allah. We are connected with ourselves. We see things as they are. We see things clearly, without projecting what I think about that.
So Omar mentioned, Kathryn, this word about humbleness, which I believe is, let me get it here. I had it somewhere. What was that K word you had?
You said Khushuu, you mean?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. So what this seems to be an important aspect. And one of the things I notice about humbleness is a lot of people identify humbleness from the outside. You're humble, you don't talk a certain way, you don't say certain things. To me, that has nothing to do with humbleness, but that's just me. How do you see that? Humbleness in relationship to guided by Allah?
That's a really good question. And in that moment, it's like, I've never thought about it from that perspective, but like whether it's outside or inside. But I think the way I experience is it's an internal thing, because our external really is a reflection of what's going on inside. And you can pretend externally, but it's not really then going to be humbleness, is it? The humbleness to me is the submission to the fact that I'm not in charge. I'm not in control. And submitting to the fact that there is a creator that is in charge and in control of it all. And the humbleness is getting out of our head, out of our intellectual thinking that I know best, or
he's the one who's in control and charge. That's what they're saying.
That I need to figure out the answers. That I actually don't need to figure out the answers. I need to just see what's happening right now and show up with what's happening right now, because Allah already has the answers. That the outcome isn't in my hands, so it's not about outcomes, it's about presence and doing the best you can in the moment. I think that is the true humbleness, submitting to the fact that I'm not in charge of any of this.
One of the things, because I thought about it too, Kathryn, this word humbleness, and one of the connections the indigenous bring to humbleness is it leads to sharing, true sharing. And I was thinking about that connection because there was a time when, first of all, a lot of people said, Harry, you have to be a lot humbler. And so I go, yeah, but that's nice of you to say it, but it sounds like you want me to be a wimp, to be honest. And I'm not going to be a wimp. I'm Harry Durbitsky. Harry may be many things, but he is not a wimp. And the thing that I noticed was that when I made this deeper transition into a deeper level of consciousness, I stopped thinking about results, what other people thought. I stopped examining the past. It was great, but I just moved on. It was just, I wasn't concerned anymore about my own identity within the picture that was being created. And when I was like that, it was like I was more neutral in my head, and I just allowed the river to flow through. And when that river flowed through, it just kept flowing and flowing and flowing. And so that internal humbleness allows us to not think so much and so on. But the sharing can only come from that perspective. Anything else where you bring your own personal identity into it is what is that word again, Kathryn, that you use, the K word?
Khushuu.
Khushuu.
Khushuu. Okay, nice word. Okay. Anyone want to add to any? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share my intake on Khushuu. And Khushuu, or the state of humbleness, being humble or or humility, in other words. Humility, I've read this quote before by C.S. Lewis that goes like, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And for me, that means that when it's just about ego, actually, because when I'm thinking about myself too much, I'm in the state of ego. But when I think about, you know, about others, I am, you know, opening myself up, or you know, opening that window crack so the ego could just, you know, as Keith Evans says, the ego collapses, and this is the stage actually where people have an insight. This is when we are able to see something new for ourselves. This is where we get more present, connect with Allah more, with people around us, and just be, you know, productive.
I love you. Sorry, did I squish you?
Ines, can you mute yourself, please?
Oh,
Yeah, so for me, it just means to, yeah, jumping out of my head a bit and just be in the here and now. And in that moment, I am thinking about myself less.
Would you say,
In that
Omar,
moment, I am
would you,
connected to
sorry
everything.
for cut, would you say, Omar, that the
Yeah.
Western world has a little bit of a different interpretation of humility, and it shows in the way they express themselves versus they have sometimes a difficulty in accepting the way Muslims share or relate to, because they don't understand humility in the same context? That's a question,
Well,
not a
yeah.
observation.
No, I get it. For me, like in the Western world, humility, when people say I'm humble, it's still in, it's not in a spiritual, it's not on a deeper level. Just in the word of form, I'm just being humble around others. I'm being humble with, like, if someone is rich or a famous person, I'm being humble and hanging out with people and not showing off. But for us as Muslim, being humble is just, you know, kind of forgetting about yourself complete, or like in a Sufi community or in Sufism, it's about, you know, like just being that love, like you know, here Rumi talking about love a lot, and in that state of love. And so like in the Western world, like I see this in like people who are religious more, like you know, Christian people, Jewish people, you know, Hindu or any other religion. Like we have this in common, and it's so important, like in every religion, because it's for me it's the essence. It's what makes you, you know, want to be in that space with other people who worship God.
Beautiful. I love that. I have a personal question, Kathryn. One of the things I don't understand is why the Muslim women cover themselves up so much and wear the clothes. I don't mean it as an offensive question, but a genuine question of what freedom that gives you. And I'm going to tell you a story to preempt that. I had a Muslim client, and she was struggling with being a woman and being a Muslim woman, which were two different things. So one day she would show up dressed like you are, and the next day she would dressed like a Western. She had said, I don't want to do that, and the next day would be back again to the wardrobe. And So what does it mean to wear that, and why so covered up, and yeah, like your beautiful face, and so on, and what conflict does it cause for you being a woman to do that when the rest of the world is not?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And maybe my answer will be a bit unexpected. So I was 26 when I embraced Islam. So I spent 26 of my years not dressing like this. So I do understand both sides. And I think telling you a story is probably the best way to understand the freedom it gave me to cover, rather than to not cover, because it's kind of seen the other way around, isn't it? That somehow we're being oppressed if we're covering, and it's freedom if we can uncover. So my first career was in the IT industry, and this was in the very early 90s. And at that time, it was a very male-dominated field. And as a woman and a programmer in the IT industry, I wasn't treated with a great deal of respect. I experienced, because I was also at that stage a fitness leader, so I was had a very sharp figure, and and yeah, I used to teach 10 classes a week, so I was super fit, and I experienced a lot of what would be called sexual harassment in the workforce. I was looked down upon, and even though I have a reasonable intelligence, that was not seen. What was seen was me as a sexual figure, really. And what happened was I was working in a particular company, and I got so sick of that behavior, I moved to another company only to go to a worse level. So I ended up in the management team in this next company, and I was dragged along to all the lunches with all the CEOs of all the companies, because I was like a draw card to get the businesses to come to the lunches, because I was this young, attractive woman. And so I got treated even more like an object rather than a human being in this next job. And it was while I was working there that I came across Islam and became a Muslim. And my manager, my CEO, said to me, finding out you've become a Muslim is like finding out my son is a heroin addict. That was his impression of it, because obviously I wasn't going to dress the way he wanted me to dress, because I used to get told, you know, I had to dress in more power suits and this and that, and, you know, even described how I was meant to show up at work. So after I decided that obviously that was not going to be the best place to work as a Muslim, and was now wearing hijab, I actually approached the company I used to work at, and I rang one of the managers that I'd worked with and said, was there a position? They were really looking for people in my area. And so it was great to have someone that was not only able to program in that language, but knew their systems as well. So they were keen to have me. And on the phone, I said, just need to tell you something though. I've become a Muslim, and now I, you know, cover myself all over. And they said, well, we don't care about that. So I went back to the same company working with the same people, the people who had really, you know, treated me quite in a lower class way, only to discover that I got treated completely differently when I showed up fully covered, that they actually saw how much of an asset I was to the team. I walked into the CEO's office one day and said, you know, the team you have me in, there's really no leadership and everybody's floundering. I've had experience in leadership now. Do you think I could take charge of this team? And he goes, sure. And so I had that kind of ability to just be, well, I guess the way I describe it was that glass ceiling that the women were experiencing in the company wasn't there for me anymore. Somehow I was treated differently. And we'd often have a Monday morning meeting, and before the meeting would start, the men would be a bit raucous, talking about how they got drunk on the weekend and talking with a bit of bad language and things. And then they'd look at me and they go, "Oh, sorry." And their whole demeanor would change because they apologized to me for acting in a kind of disrespectful way towards women, because they were talking about who they hooked up with on the weekend and those sorts of things. And the other women actually started saying, "Hey, you guys don't apologize to us for that." So I started noticing that I was being treated in a much more respectful way, that they were seeing my intelligence, that I became a valuable team member rather than the way they had treated me before. So I feel that when sexuality is taken out of the picture, it becomes like an even playing field. And so us wearing the hijab is like taking the sexuality out of the picture so that we can actually relate to one another on the same level as human being to human being.
Beautiful, beautiful. Maybe could one other woman maybe express what she feels with that? I just would just any one of you, what you feel. That was a beautiful answer. I totally agree with it, by the way, totally. And before someone answers, one of the things I have been surprised at is how expressive and powerful the Muslim women are while they're wearing their, what they're wearing. But if another one could talk about that, I just would love to hear about that.
I can say something or two. Hello there, everyone.
Hi, Ines.
I was just going to share something about my experience being invited as a speaker in an environment that has rich women from the elite who haven't really mixed with Muslim women or Mediterranean women, and tend to think that we're sort of lower class or illiterate or oppressed. And the first time I attended, I felt very, I was very conscious of what I'm going to wear, probably wear a smaller hijab, tuck it into my jacket, sort of conceal it, wear a neck scarf that was sort of, how do I fit in, put in a brooch, a little bit of makeup. And I was very nervous being in a place on the 99th floor overlooking the Opera House and Harbour Bridge. And I, even the way I sat in my chair, I sulked in, even though I was the only speaker, I was the guest speaker, and I was speaking on behalf of our charity. I still felt very small. As I got invited to more events, I felt my value as a Muslim woman. I felt my value that I wasn't supposed to fit in. I was supposed to stand out, and stand out for a reason. Only then I felt very empowered. I felt that I was there to convey a message. It didn't matter what I looked. It didn't matter how I dressed, how I've covered myself, or fitting in wasn't in the equation anymore. And until I done that, it sort of freed me, and I just stood there and spoke my authentic self of who I am and who I represent and what I do. And I do that in my work as well. And I realized dealing with different men, in vulnerable men in our society who walk into our charity day in, day out. A lot of the men have now, been asking me if they can hug me. So I've become a non-sexualized icon, a bit like the Muslim version of Mother Teresa. Of course, I deny, because I tell them, you know, as a Muslim woman, I can't hug the opposite sex, but I just put my hand on my heart and I bow down and I say, you know, this is the way we hug, you know, I've got love for you in my heart. So men are starting to connect with me at a deeper level, like from feel like I've become like a mother figure or a caring person, sort of motherly figure or grandmother. Even like grown men with grey beards tell me how much I remind them of their grandmother. So people are now looking beyond our skin, beyond our looks, beyond our clothing and the way we dress, and looking deeper into what we do and who we represent, and connecting heart to heart. So thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Ines, I think, has something to share as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mona. Loved what you shared. Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Ines, you go next. You can unmute yourself, Ines.
I'm always muted and unmuted at the wrong times. Yeah, I don't know who Harry was relating to, but I might be someone similar, because I went through a stage of sometimes wearing hijab and sometimes not. I was raised in Australia, born a Muslim, and I grew up in a country town where there were no other Muslims except for us. And the person I learned hijab from was a lady in a bigger city who was actually, who used to be Christian missionary but became a Muslim, and she taught me about hijab. My mother didn't wear hijab. My grandmother didn't in Egypt. You know, in those days, most people in Egypt were quite westernized and didn't wear hijab, or the people in the cities at least. So I didn't grow up around hijab, but when I became more spiritual as a teenager, and I learned hijab from my this friend. So I wore hijab, and then I had the pressure of my mum sort of not understanding why I wore it. And then I was in a city where there were no other people wearing it. So it was the societal pressure. It was a bit much for me, being the only one. So I did take it off, and, you know, I resolved to sort of be modest in the way I dress. I was 17 at the time. And then gradually you just sort of fall into the fashion and whatever everyone else is doing. And I had similar experiences to Kathryn when I joined the workforce. There was sexual harassment in various areas. I worked in the legal field. And again, you know, it was similar to what Kathryn experienced there. During my work in that field, I decided to take the step and wear hijab again. It was very isolating for me at the time. I wasn't strong enough within myself. A lot of people in my workplace gave me the silent treatment, and I would have preferred that, you know, people would ask me why than have the silent treatment. So again, I was in a position that I wasn't around Muslims. I was only around in an environment where I felt I was the only one. I would do legal cases, and the judge would be, you know, he would sort of say to me in front of everyone, "Oh, are you doing this for the Ayatollah, for your Ayatollah?" And I'm like, I've got nothing to do with Ayatollah, but, you know, he was just trying to humiliate me in front of everyone. People treated me like I was not a lawyer, that I was just the interpreter. Like whenever I'd walk into
a lower version of, yeah.
yeah, like I'd walk into the courtroom and they'd say, oh, you're the interpreter. And I'm like, no, I'm the person representing, you know, I was representing the government at the time. But like, yeah, my close colleagues at work were great, but, you know, in the wider work environment, it was very isolating. And I wasn't strong enough at the time. So again, I took it off. But I wanted to. I felt it's a way of being closer to God. I wanted to do it. But I wasn't strong enough to face that societal pressure. I won't even call it peer pressure because it was like the whole society. And then when I finally felt comfortable, I ended up moving to Egypt, and I got married to someone who supported this choice, and I wore hijab. And then I came back to Australia, went back to my job for a year, and, you know, I was more comfortable in my skin then. And similar to Mona, like, because I felt, you know, maybe people are looking at me in a different way. Sometimes you might feel small because you're the different one, you know. But I would consciously say, no, walk with your head up high and your shoulders back and just be comfortable in who you are. So that's sort of a bit of my early journey in hijab. And one other thing that stood out for me is when I was working in the government and I was in a senior position at a young age, we had this someone who came from America who gave professional development for the women. And that was before I wore hijab. And she did this presentation, how to be a powerful professional woman. And she herself was dressed very modestly. I mean, she nearly was dressed as a Muslim except for the headscarf. And she said, don't show cleavage, don't show your legs. You want to be taken seriously, you know, wear long sleeve, wear a long skirt. And I thought, wow, you know, she's telling us what our faith is guiding us to. So that was quite an impressionable thing. So yeah, it's just some of my experiences. But yeah, some people, like a lot of us, even people who, like Kathryn, are Australian born, you know, they've been here for many generations, or people like me, sometimes people talk to us as if we don't understand English, you know. So for someone who's not as comfortable in their skin, it could be intimidating.
Well, a couple of things resonate with me. First of all, one of the wisdoms of guided by Allah is that men can't control their thoughts about women, which, by the way, is true. And it gets it out of the way. And that is really actually a freeing for the men too. In the sweat lodge, the women have to come in with long wardrobes. They can't show their leg or anything because the men will get enticed by just, you know, a quick flash of this or quick flash of it. So it definitely does that. It gets you out of that mode type of thing. It also shows that you're in a connection, a spiritual connection to Allah, which is a statement in itself, and perhaps makes people feel uncomfortable. And the third thing that I see it do is, because there is prejudice in the world, not only to Muslims, but all over the world, it forces you to be yourself or be totally afraid to be yourself, which of course will lead you to being yourself. And the stronger you sense within yourself who you are, the closer you're going to be to who you are, the true self of that.
Beautiful.
I have actually enjoyed talking to women. This is a personal point. And I'd like Sharon, by the way, to give a woman's perspective from a non-thing, just for fun. And then we'll move on quickly.
If someone heard you, a Muslim guy would say, Astaghfirullah, what are you saying, Harry?
What's this? Sorry?
about enjoying talking to women. It's
Oh.
a joke. It's a joke.
Oh,
But
okay. Oh, that's you used a hairy joke, a bad joke. Okay, I got that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but it has been enjoyable to talk to women. When we talk, when we intermingle, we get to see the beauty. I'm talking about the inner beauty of the person. And every time I talk to a Muslim woman, I'm dropping images, I'm dropping prejudices, not because I want to have them, because they're in there, and I feel freer. And I always go, oh, look at the power this woman has. Look at the wisdom she's expressed, and she's doing it when she's being discriminated by sometimes by her own Muslim men, and of course by the white culture. So Sharon, just to bring you in just for a second to get a Western woman's perspective, what have you gathered from this? I actually thought we will talk about more spiritual things, but this is a fundamental discrimination element that I would want. How do you see that?
I really enjoyed hearing this because I felt what they said about being, that it was like oppressed, and to listen to, to all of them, but Kathryn really touched me, how she had more freedom being covered up than she did not being covered up. And, as my experience in the work world, I think I was very insecure, no matter, always worried about what I was wearing, or if I had makeup or had my hair done and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, how nice, to be able to cover everything up, not have to worry about that. And then the lack of, I was so shocked to hear her say about the difference in the reaction from people, and going back to her first workplace and having all this respect. I'm like, well, that's really cool. It was fascinating. And yeah, it's just, what a new perspective. I'm so glad that I got to hear that. And the reason that they wear the hijab is it's very enlightening to me. I never understood. So now I know. Yeah, what a freedom. I feel that. I'm like, whoa, because I could have used that 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Maybe now. The older I get, the less I care, and that's kind of a freedom. But yeah, so
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. That's beautiful. Okay, let's move on to, I'm glad we covered that topic. That's a personal topic type of thing. Omar, you weren't part of that discussion but there was a reason for that. So Omar.
Yeah, maybe when I start wearing a hijab as well.
Okay, yeah. I want freedom too. Yes, I got that. Oh, so when we were struggling to come up with the name for the show, you came up with something that was an airline, and then I saw this word Tawhid. And since the show is called Tawhid, can you explain, and then Kathryn, what that word actually means to you, and why it's such a perfect name for this group? And
So
the name of your new mentoring academy.
Okay. Yeah, Tawhid is such a beautiful word because it conveys the oneness of it all, the oneness of life, the oneness of us, of our souls. And like, I couldn't find a better name. Like, there is no other name that I would have chosen. Well, it's because of you, Harry. I came up with different name at the beginning. I came up with Ittihad. Like, I completely forgot about Tawhid. But yeah, I mean, thanks to Harry, I thought he studied Arabic before or something, but it's such a powerful name because it showcased what the show is all about, and what is the three principles, and the spiritual essence of Islam is all about. It's all about, or getting touching base with that space within us, with our fitra. And for me, there is no separation. It looks like there are a lot of separations and fragmentations, but for me, it's we are all connected. We are all one. Like as like there are a lot of people who say like a coin. You know, there is no separation from the you know, the upper side and the lower side. And yeah, I mean, so I've actually decided to call the company that I've just launched recently, Tawhid Mentoring Academy. Yeah, because like that's what we do. Like that's the message is all about bringing people together. That's our main focus on the show, to keep it diverse. Everyone feels welcome, no matter where you're from, or no matter your religion, no matter your beliefs. It doesn't really matter on a deeper level. I'm talking about on a deeper level, it doesn't matter. Maybe some people will have different views, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what Rumi is pointing at when he says that beyond right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. So this quote actually, it highlights, you know, what the word Tawhid means and why I chose the word Tawhid for my company as well.
Okay,
yeah, I hope this answered your question.
go ahead. Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's a beginning of a description of something that's impossible to describe. So
Absolutely.
you know, but it has a feeling associated with it. We are all one. In the indigenous world and the Anishinaabes, it all started with one breath into a bowl. And from that breath, we all come from, and we are all part of. Go ahead, Kathryn.
Yeah, so I guess from my Islamic teaching perspective, Tawhid to me comes as there's only one God, like there's only one creator for all of us. And so that's, I guess, where my perspective starts from. When it comes to how that works with the three principles, is there's only one place to turn when you've lost your wisdom. That's back to Allah. And when you do that, your wisdom comes back again. One of the things that I am quite often saying in my coaching sessions with my students, who are all, of course, Muslim, is when you remember how Allah fits into the picture, you're okay again. So usually in the coaching call, it's at that moment when they realize how Allah fits back into the picture, they feel back okay again. And so for me, in the context of 3 Ps and the word Tawheed is pointing us in the direction of wisdom, and the wisdom coming through our connection with Allah. So it's pointing back to Allah.
Pointing back to the Allah within as well.
So well, I don't see Allah as within. The wisdom or the connection we have with Allah is within us. If that makes sense.
Well,
yeah,
it makes total sense.
Yeah. So Allah is separate from his creation. We're his creation. He's the creator. But when we have that connection with him, we feel it within, right here in our heart. Here is where we feel that connection with Allah. So it comes from within, definitely, that feeling.
Yeah, that alive feeling.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a calm. That's the way I describe it. The feeling when you have that good, strong connection and you're in your, what I call in your wisdom. It's kind of just the language we use. It's a calm certainty.
Beautiful. How about one more Muslim man or woman given their own impression of that word. It's a beautiful word, obviously. Sid often talked about oneness. In fact, I would say he didn't talk about anything else but oneness.
Hello, good evening, Harry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so before I always thought of Tawhid as simply the oneness of God, but this conversation has made me has brought some insights as well. Maybe they were there, like it reminds me of the insights. So I used to feel so isolated before, as if everybody had a way they were connecting and I was separate. So when I think about Tawhid now, it's about, yes, we might all be separate, but then when each of us is connected, each of us is connected to one source, then we're all connected together. And as a Muslim, it's of course the connection to Allah. And so since we're all His creations, and we get into our wisdom and connect, then we're all connected. So some of us may feel the connection more, or we all might feel the connection stronger at different times. But so whether we feel it or not, we are connected. And I guess that's where, again, being okay comes. So we're all okay, but some of us might feel it and some of us not.
Yeah, that's exactly, that connection is everything. When I read the word Tawhid, I got this: there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet. Somehow,
I was about to mention actually that I forgot to mention in Arabic, Tawhid means like there is only one truth and one God. Apart from oneness, as we are all connected, it means that there is only one truth and one God, which makes total sense in the 3P community. And
I might disagree with you, but go ahead.
I'm not. Yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
Like, I'm not saying that this is the right path or the right. When I say truth, or like now, because of this understanding, the inside out understanding, now I know that it doesn't mean that it's just Allah. This is only the truth, and Jesus and other. It's not the truth. It makes sense to me that these are different names to the same infinite intelligence behind life. So that makes me closer to people rather than separate, because that belief is pushing me away from a lot of people. Like, if I believe that you are Jewish and he is Christian, and like there is no oneness in there. And we, like, in our religion, there are lots of hadiths, what our prophet like, he used to always talk about when he met a sick Jewish man and he went to visit him and he did this and that. Like, so for me, like, it does, some people say this is like they're separate. This is, for me, there is no separation. For me, truth brings people together. That's it. It brings people together. You don't feel weird around, a black person or white person or Chinese or an Arab or a non-Arab, or there is no separation.
That's Khushuu. I probably pronounced it. The state
Khushuu.
of that state of humbleness. I think you just defined the state of humbleness, that connection, and the way you have done it. You need to have that humbleness so you don't get your personal beliefs in the way of the truth, the one truth.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, Omar, because that's definitely a conversation we've been having amongst ourselves in our group too. How, because we've been more actively involved in the 3P community, and so therefore listening to lots of different speakers and being and doing what Sydney says, listen beyond the words. So rather than listen to the words where the words have all the labels, whether it's universal mind or Allah or the labels, you listen beyond the words. You don't see the labels, you see what the person is trying to tell you, what they're trying to explain. And just like Sydney asked us to do when we listened to him, and that's where you see all the similarities, where you see everybody's trying to describe and point to the same thing in their own different ways, with their own different words. That's why you don't listen to the words, you listen beyond the words. And when I heard Sydney say that, I've taken that on board ever since. It's been years now, like listen beyond the words, don't listen to the words. It makes so much difference. That's where you find the truth, the humbleness, the unity, the connection, because the words become the barrier if you listen to them, because you get stuck in the labels on the particular words.
That's 100% correct. There are no three principles. There's just a feeling. That's all he's pointing. He came up with 3 words to describe things that they're formless. So they're not even words. They're just, but there's a feeling he's pointing towards. And he says, when you recognize where that feeling is and where it comes from, when you are that feeling, you are what Asha was talking about, what you were talking about, what Omar's talking about. This common feeling that we have between each other has nothing to do with words. It doesn't have anything to do with mind, thought, and consciousness. It's just the feeling. But of course, we don't have to use the word mind. We use the word guided by Allah. So even that proves that it's not a word. Or thought. What is thought? A breath? Oh, no, it's a thought. Oh, what type of thought? Again, you can't figure that out. It's a feeling.
That's the rabbit hole. There is no end to this question.
No end at all. Okay.
Right.
Well, that's Tadi.
I just want to mention something that that is part of the conversation we're having right now about Khushuu and the state of humbleness and humility, thinking of myself, of ourselves less. It's a quote, I think it's by Sydney Banks, I'll double check. But it says that the recognition of other as yourself in essence, not the form, is true love. And that's, in other words, like what this quote by C.S. Lewis said about humility, not thinking of yourself less, but thinking less of yourself. Thinking of myself less is being in that state of love, for sure. I mean, yeah, you name it.
Well, it leads naturally into my next question, coincidentally. There is this word, Tawakkul, which I probably pronounced wrong, is the word Tawakkul, is the word for the Islamic concepts of the reliance on God or trusting in God's plan. I love that. It is seen as perfect trust in God and reliance on Him alone. It can also be referred to as God consciousness, which Sid often talked about, Christ consciousness, God consciousness, and he said, take that out, just consciousness. Tawakkul and trusting God's plan. So liberating.
it sets you free. It does. It sets you free, sets your mind free, because you don't have to worry.
That's right. It actually answers all the psychological questions we have. That's the spiritual way of dealing with psychology. And then the psychology way is going the other way with thought. But if you trust God's plan, if you're sick, that's perfect. It's God's plan. It's God's plan. You got a job you don't like, or a husband you don't like, that's God's plan. Guess where the problem is? Oh.
So we say in our group, slowing down to the speed of Tawakkul.
Okay. I like that. Kind of tickles your stomach when you say it.
Yeah.
How about someone else, one of the others, maybe how they see God's plan and how it relates to their psychological and humanness as well? How about you, Daniela? I haven't heard from you. I like once in a while hearing from you.
Hi, everyone. Tawakkul. For me, that is. Sorry, I'm not coming on camera because I don't have my hijab on, so I won't. But yeah, Tawakkul is for me really just having that. It really is, you know, slowing down to listening to what is being. How we're being guided in that moment, and knowing that nothing will happen to us if it's not meant for us, and if it's meant for us, it will happen because it's written for us. So really trusting in that. And when I trust in that, how can I say it? You know, it really is just putting it back onto Allah, you know, because I don't know the big plan. I only have a small snippet of what is happening, and even that could be wrong because that's my plan, you know.
Well, how do you fit into all of that then? I understand. Well, it's not just Allah, you're there too.
Well, that's true. So it is, when I don't know things, I turn to Allah, I turn back to God and I ask Him. And
then what happens?
I can give you an example. So a few years ago, and this one always stands out for me quite big because it was a big event in our lives. So my husband, he was going overseas. One of our sons was getting married. And, you know, of course, we all wanted to be there as a family. And things were happening around us so that it didn't feel right to be leaving when my husband was leaving. So I actually turned to Allah in those moments. Like, actually, when he was booking tickets, we booked all of our tickets, but something inside me was not feeling okay. I was feeling off. And so we came home and I spoke to him and I said, you know, this is what's happened. You know, I've got this feeling, I don't think it's the right thing to do. And so for me, I made a dua. It's called istikhara. So it's, you know, asking Allah for what is, you know, what is good for me, you know, to give it to me. And if it's not good for me to leave it, because He's the best of planners. And what I found is that in that moment, it wasn't the right time to go. So I left it and I felt good. Like I felt a peace inside of me. And then a few weeks after, my other stepson, he was leaving at a different time. So I said, okay, let's go. Like I'll come with you instead. And I felt okay. I felt actually good about going, you know, that time. but things were like, so I was making the plans to go, you know, getting visas and all the rest of it to head off, tickets and whatever, you know, pretty much booked but not paid. And then I made the Istikara prayer again, and it came, like, for me, the outcome was that we didn't end up going. And that was a real big heartache. You know, it was hard. You know, it's not always easy. You know, nothing is always going to be easy, even though it's something that you really want. So it was something really hard for all of us. But I knew that because I had handed it over to Allah, you know, I had that tawakkul in His plan, that trust in His plan, that it was going to be okay. And, you know, thank God, like I have that, because when they were there, things happened. And I'm glad that I wasn't in that situation again. I've already been in a situation sort of similar, and I wasn't, you know, God saved me from that. So it's seeing the bigger picture after even the events are happening, and being okay, because I know that I'm always okay, and it's just, you know, really trusting in that. So yeah, for me, it's just about knowing that I'm okay, even when it feels like I'm not.
Do you know what I feel from what you're talking about? There's a lot less human suffering when tawakkul is part of your life. And that's gotta be good. I mean, no offense, but that's gotta be good. Less human suffering. We put ourselves through a lot of needless bullshit.
Yeah.
Excuse the expression, but it's a good word. And
That's so true. And what I find is that when I'm talking to people who don't have a belief in anything, like not in anything, you know, they don't have a certain belief in whatever, you know, then it's harder for them to, I see the lack of spirituality in their life. And for me, that's disheartening. Like I find that not disheartening, but it is saddening in any case.
it's part,
to me.
well, it's a part of God's plan, you know, so.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
This is this is beautiful. We just shared, Daniela, and it just reminded me of what I've been talking about here. These people that you mentioned, like, they think about themselves a lot. So you could see when we make a big deal of ourselves, and what I mean by self is like ego. We suffer a lot. We don't have that tawakkul. And the tawakkul for me is simply giving up control, knowing that I'll be fine no matter what. For example, you know, when I trust someone and a friend and I tell him a secret, I give up the control of him, you know, like telling it to others, and just trust him. And and that, like with Allah, it just comes beautifully. Like, you suffer less. You really suffer less. Like, I have a story to share actually about tawakkul, because when I was coming back to Casablanca from England, from London, I had a huge bag with me, and I was allowed to bring in 20 kilogram, and my bag was weighing 28. So I had to pay 11 pounds for each kilogram, which is 88 quid. So I went mad, because it was like like just before my flight, 3 hours before my flight, and I added some stuff. So, and I bought this thingy to weight my suitcase with, and it was like 28 kilogram. So I just opened my suitcase and tried to put some clothes in my other smaller suitcase that they don't check with Ryanair, and so I brought it to 24. and I was so stressed that, you know, I'm going to miss my flight and something gonna happen. And I was trying to figure it out. So I was on my way to the airport, and I was in the coach, and at some point I just had this beautiful insight. Just give up trying to fix it. Just give up. Like, it was so beautiful, and I stopped. All of the sudden, I stopped thinking about what's gonna happen, and I just, you know, let my mind just go with, you know,
With
enjoying the
flow.
views until I arrived. Yeah, when I arrived to the airport, it was like a huge queue, and then I got put in a queue where a lady was like there, like she was really kind of, you know, not having a good day, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to pay 44 quid. And so what's happened is that, like, just when like, so I was like one before behind one guy, and like I heard the conversation. She was talking to this guy, and he was like, excuse me, sir, you've got like 25 kilos here. And he told her, okay, sorry, I will just go there and see what I could, you know, take back. And so I was like, I was next. Then they opened the new line, and a new lady came up, and she was like asking next. So I went to the new lady that I think she was on a break or something. And I just spoke with her nicely, like, hi, how are you doing today? It seems like you just started. She told me I've been here, like, you know, since 6 a.m. and it was like 4 p.m. at that time.
You didn't use your manly charm, I hope.
I guess that too, but no, like,
okay,
the moral of this story,
yeah.
Like, she didn't even check my suitcase. She didn't even check how many kilos I've got. She just checked my passport, my boarding flight ticket, and that's it. I couldn't believe that she didn't check, because Ryanair, they are really strict. I mean, like, if you traveled with Ryanair before, they're really strict, and they have to check everything because they need money. Yeah. And so when I was leaving, I was like, are you sure? Like, she's not going to ask me about, you know, she's not going to check my suitcase and how many kilograms I've got. And so it was just amazing, like, what's happened, because I was suffering my thinking and suffering the situation before it happened, and it turned out to be fine. So how many times we do this in our day-to-day, you know, life, and just suffer for stuff we don't need to suffer about. And for me, that's tawakkul, giving up control, trying to control, you know, the what's going to happen with my suitcase and the flight. And yeah, I mean, this was a good one for me. Like, I had a huge insight that day, and yeah, it was a blessing. Now I know that, yeah, just leave it. It's gonna be fine.
And what's interesting, because I have experienced something of how we create beautiful love in our lives. When we have that feeling and it means so much to us, like you're talking about at that point, 88 or 44 pounds or whatever it was going to be, meant so much to you, God heard that and changed the situation to accommodate you. As life is evolving and it means something to us, it actually alters. It's not destined, it's altering, changing at its moment, and it becomes your destiny. It meant something to you to have that prayer. I care a lot about this money. It's going to hurt me. I'm involved in it. And it changes the situation, because God hears you. Allah hears you. He changes the thing to accommodate the situation. See how?
So here a comment by Reza saying, in the surrender to the outcome, Allah decided is the best outcome.
Well,
that's it, Reza.
Yeah. That's exactly what I said, except I used my terminology. We said
Yeah.
identical things, and perhaps that should be where we leave this. We obviously could, we have.
Harry, we've got 2 hands raised.
Oh,
So
okay.
just finish
Oh,
what you want to say, then Ines will go.
Oh, no.
And then
Let
Rahil.
your hands raised is very important. Go ahead.
Ines, you go ahead. And then
Yeah, I've had a journey of tawakkul. My eldest daughter was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy when she was 1 year old. So as a baby, she didn't develop as other babies did. She didn't crawl, she didn't roll over, she couldn't stand. And the day that I got that diagnosis was quite devastating. I was told she would not live beyond childhood, that she wouldn't live beyond 4 years of age, that she would never walk, she'd be in a wheelchair all her life. So it was, at that moment, it was a lot of information and quite heartbreaking for me at the time. I was also told if she ever got a cold or a flu, that is what could bring her demise. So any cough or sniffle would be, very stressful for me, thinking, is this it? So it's been a long journey because she lived beyond 4 years of age. She's 30 years of age now. What she has is a genetic condition. And I've told our group this story a few times. My husband and I didn't dream of having another child because, I was spending 24/7 caring for her. And my husband is not that typical, a Middle Eastern man that you think of who wants lots of children. He just said, alhamdulillah, thank God we have one child. Some people don't have any children, He didn't care to have, or, it wasn't on his radar to have more children. So one day I took her to Mecca where we have our pilgrimage, but it wasn't at the time of the pilgrimage. I took her to pray for her, and there's holy water there, and, to pray for her to God. While I was there, I found myself saying a prayer asking for another child. And I thought that was quite strange. I thought that wasn't on my radar, but it came from within. It came right from my heart. And what I was taught in spiritual classes, if you say a prayer, then that means God wants to answer it for you. So I went back to my husband. I said, look, I've said this prayer. It came out of nowhere. We've got to have another child. And he said, no, don't worry. We're fine, because, it's a genetic condition. And then my in-laws, they were all worried, and my mum, and, they were saying, then if you're going to get pregnant, then have a test and maybe you need to have an abortion. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. If God granted me my beautiful daughter who has this condition, who am I to say another child with the same condition has no right to be in this world? That was the way that I thought. I mean, it was nothing to do with religious correct or, what's incorrect or correct. But I felt that with my relationship with God, that wasn't the right thing to do. So I relied on God, Tawakkul, and I had the baby, and she's a healthy baby. She's 25 now. Another experience, I've had many experiences of tawakkul because at 10 years of age, the doctors told me she only have 1 year to live. She was meant to have an operation. Her lungs were getting weaker, and they said she needed an operation to straighten her spine. And then the night before the operation, they told us she can't have it. And they told us that if she went into the operation room, she'd die because her lung function was only 15%. They told me that flying in an airplane is dangerous for her because of the oxygen or pressure or whatever. So again, I went through a time of fear because of what the doctors were saying. But then God showed me to trust in his plan. So a couple of years later, she was in ICU and she pulled through. And then, you know, she was saying, Mummy, why can't we go to Australia? We were living in Egypt at the time. And she said, I miss my grandparents, I miss my cousins. And I thought, you know what, even if she dies on the plane, I'd rather have her die happy than you know, us living in fear and just, you know, being imprisoned. So we came to Australia at the time and nothing happened. That was Tawakkul. You know, we trusted in God, we trusted in Allah, and we traveled. Another time she was in hospital, she nearly died. That, you know, it was one of those times she was in ICU, and, you know, it was a time that all of the, you know, the monitors went flat. And I thought she died. It was a very difficult time. And alhamdulillah, by the grace of God and prayers of all of our friends and families, she got revived again. And straight after that, there was this camp in Egypt run like a youth group thing. And I wanted her to join because she was a bit lonely. She was doing homeschooling and, you know, she's a very social girl. So I wanted her to join this camp. So she came out of ICU and I got a phone call because I'd inquired and I'm saying, yes, you know, can we book a place for my daughter? Is it wheelchair friendly? And she's going, Mummy, you crazy? You know, I'm just out of ICU. How can I go to this? I said, you know, no harm in inquiring. It was at a time when there was political unrest in Egypt, and this place was 10 hours away, and they were saying there were gangs, you know, in the desert, like coming at people. And I'm like, no, we've got to go to this. It'll be fine. And we went. And she thought I was crazy. It was a 10-hour drive, which was very uncomfortable for her because we couldn't take the plane because the wheelchair couldn't get on the, you know, internal flight. We went. It was a life-changing thing for her. She met some of the best friends she has to this day. She got involved with this charity group. It led to her being on a TEDx talk. Her friends in that group encouraged her to go on TEDx, which was life-changing for her and many people. Like, she's got nearly 100,000 views, and to this day we meet people who say their lives have been changed by her talk. So yeah, we didn't get any any thugs or anything on the way, you know, and we just trusted in God and we went. And it's just, yeah, I know I'm talking a lot, but it just means a lot to me because Allah gave me this beautiful soul in my life to teach me tawakkul, because there's a lot of fear. And I know the doctors mean well, but, you know, when they tell you this will happen or that will happen, and, you know, you believe them. And but then I've learned to trust in God, because she's 30 years old. She's given us so much love in our family. And, you know, we thought she would only last with us for a few years, but we've been given that gift for many, many years.
What a blessing. What a blessing.
Such a beautiful story.
Beautiful blessing.
Thank you for sharing. We have Robina who wants to share something. Would you like to unmute yourself, Robina?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Salam.
It's so humbling to be with people I already know on here. I've not spoken to them for a long time, which includes Kathryn and my very, very old best mate. And there's some new people here as well. The humbleness to be here, you know, the humbleness is a state of mind. And right now, I do feel very, very humbled to be amongst beautiful hearts, beautiful souls. I'm humbled because I've been very sick and ill recently, for every breath that I have right now. And which I didn't know which way my life is going to go, but humbleness is right now in this moment, in the consciousness. And I'm not always here in this state. Many times I'm not in the state of the consciousness, even though I'm so aware when I am. I'm just forgetful when I'm not. And there's so many things I wanted to say, but words are just words, and space is just space, and presence is just presence. And Harry, I just wanted to say something about the hijab. I wanted to say that many times I put hijab on to be close with the one and only Allah, and then it came on and off. But there was a moment with the three principles where I saw very, very clearly that I was already with Allah. I didn't need to be with Allah. I'm already with Him. He's already with me. He's with all of us. And so the hijab took a complete new perspective in my life. So I thought, wow, the hijab has got nothing to do with me wanting to be anything. It was not wanting to have freedom. It wasn't wanting to be with Him, and He's already with me. So my job is for Him, but it's not to be or get anywhere, because I'm already there. I am already here, and I do not need to wear a hijab to be with Him. So the hijab brought a new meaning throughout my insights as I've gone along the way for many years. And so many things. And Tawakkul is so many things have changed because of the three principles: the awareness, the insight, the presence. And I don't have children. There was a time when I was just suffering so much to have a child and wanted to be like everybody else and wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be something. But when I saw truth, that changed everything. Because even though I love children, I've been a teacher, I've taught children in class, I have beautiful nieces and nephews, but my love is the only love that I know. And it's got nothing to do with children. It's got nothing to do with people. But my love is there for children, for people, for my beautiful souls, my family. And There's nowhere else I would rather be. Right here, right now.
That's beautiful, the way you tied everything together in one big circle. Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. So
Thank you, Robina. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
I would like to just wrap up with saying one little thing. First of all, thank you for all the beautiful sharing feelings. And beautiful, everyone. And to me, what Tawakkul means, I just had my 75th birthday, and I can tell you everything has been perfect all the way. Just sometimes I didn't think so, but there wasn't one mistake in my life. It was all perfectly designed. And I hear the stories of the sharing. There's a lot of beautiful love and sharing in this community. And honestly, 3P needs to hear it, needs to feel it, needs to share with it. It's beautiful. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a beautiful day, eh?
Thank you for inviting me, Harry.
You're welcome,
to
Omar.
be a guest.
And also thank you, Kathryn, for also joining us. A very,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it was
Yeah, thank you, Kathryn, for being our one and only guest, our favorite guest, actually. We've had you 3 times, right? It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be able to be here and connect with all the beautiful souls that are present with us today, and all those who listen to the recording and benefit from that as well. And yeah, I'm very honored to have that status of being your favorite. Thank you. That's an honor.
it's a bond. It's a bond. It's a bond. It's to be honest, it's just brothers and sisters coming together.
Yeah. So I just want to mention for the people who ask me about the name of we have an FB group called Tawhid Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. So yeah, just type it on Facebook and you will find the group. And also before we wrap this up, Harry, I just want to mention that I'm starting a program at the moment called touching base with the state of humbleness, or the space within. And it's a program that I'm doing one-to-one with people. And so if anyone is interested for more info, just send me a message. And another one is coming up in November called the Path to the Divine, that I'm really excited about as well. All parts of the new company, Tawhid Mentoring Academy, because I'm honored to and humbled to start, and excited about what how it could benefit people and Muslims and humanity in general. So yeah, Harry, do you want to say something else before I stop the recording?
God bless. Salam alaikum.
Thank you, everyone.
Is that good? I hope.
That's great. Wa alaikum